welcome to Scrum Gear, your project management learning partner. So, here in Scrum Gear, we believe in learning together and growing together. So, let's learn together and make some impact in your life. So in the last section, we have learned about few Scrum terminologies, and also we have seen some of the Scrum process categories. And the last one that we have seen, it was a Scrum principle. Now we'll see the Scrum aspect here, which is another Scrum process categories here. And in the Scrum aspect, we have five different Scrum aspect, and we'll learn about all those aspects. Before that, I want to highlight few things here that whenever you are starting any learning, then you should note it down, because without noting it down you will not be able to remember it for longer time. So if you're noting it down, then it will help you to remember faster, and in case if you forget some of the terms, then you can refer your notes and you can always go back and learn it and start over with your learnings. Then here we'll see all the Scrum aspect here. So the first one that we have, it is organization. Second, we have a business justification. Third, we have quality. Fourth one, we have a change. And fifth one, we have risk. So we'll learn about all these five different Scrum aspect, and what are those. So the first one that we have, it is organization. So basically, in any company, in any industry, organization plays the important roles. And if you are working on any particular Scrum or any methodologies for project management, then it is much more essential to define some organization, like how it will be organized and who will be managing that. So to understand all those defined roles and responsibilities for the Scrum project, it is very important to ensure that the successful uh, ensure for the successful implementation of the Scrum processes. So here we will see the two main important role in the Scrum organization, that are core roles and non-core roles. So basically, core roles, if we talk about these particular roles, so these roles are mandatorily required for the implementation of the project, product or service, because without these roles we cannot implement the project, we cannot deliver the project. So the member who are there in the core roles, they are responsible to deliver the project, and they are responsible for the success of the project. Then we have non-core roles. In the non-core role members, these members are not needed in the Scrum project. Basically, we get the requirements from them. They are needed at some point of time where we need to review the project, and where we need to give back the project to the actual vendors or customers. So basically, these are some of those kind of members which are not necessarily needed in the daily Scrum meetings, or if we can say in any of the Scrum project. So we'll see about all these particular members. And now here, we, as I have mentioned, we have two different roles: core roles and non-core roles. So inside core roles, we have product owner, then we have a Scrum master, then we have a development team. So we will learn more about all these three different roles in our Scrum element part, because these core roles and non-core roles are also part of a Scrum elements. So we'll understand much more about these three different roles there. Then in the non-core roles, we have business stakeholders, then we have Scrum guidance body, and third one that we have, it is vendors. So we'll learn more about all these non-core roles as well in the Scrum elements part. Then next Scrum aspect that we have, it is business justification. So what is a business justification? We'll learn about this particular point here first. So for any organization, it is important to assess a business before starting any project, because if you're not assessing any business and we are starting straight away to the project, then we cannot guarantee the success of that particular project. Because if we have not assessed all the risk and all the things that are needed before starting a project, then it is not guaranteed that we can achieve a success in that particular project. So that's why it is much more important to assess your business before starting a project. And assessing a business, it also helps a decision maker to understand the business need for a change, or a new product or service in the company. So it is important for the business stakeholders and for the management team to understand why it is needed for my company, and should we do this particular change in a particular project or not, and should we move forward with a new product or new services or not. So that's why business justification is required. And business justification in Scrum is basically based on the concept of value driven delivery. So in the business justification we guarantee the value driven, because we are assessing all part of the businesses and then only we are starting a project, so that's why it comes under value driven delivery of the project. Then next we have it is a quality. So in Scrum, quality is basically defined as the ability of the completed product or deliverables to meet the acceptance criteria and achieve the business value expected by the customer. So for any particular project there have different set of deliverables, and for those set of deliverables they have different acceptance criteria, and if that is not accepted by the customers, then we cannot say that that particular deliverable is completed as per the expectation of the customers or as per the expectation of the vendors that we have. Then Scrum adopts an approach of continuous improvement whereby team learns from the experience. So we have already mentioned this point in our last section of this particular learning path, and as it keep team improving themselves and in the subsequent iterations, and this ensures that all the completed tasks are properly tested and completed in each sprint. So we have already mentioned all these points in the last section of this video, where team is learning from their team members, learning from each sprint. So maybe in a particular sprint, team might have missed out some points and they might not be able to deliver few points, but they have learned some new skills and they have learned from their team members, maybe from their team leaders, and this will always help them to improve in each iterations, and this brings the quality in the organization. Next we have a change. So basically every project, regardless of its method or framework used, is exposed to change. We can expect any change during the project or during the iteration. So this is the basic, much more important nature of the Scrum framework and agile methodologies. So in waterfall we cannot take any change at the last moment, but in the Scrum framework we can take any changes that are needed, and before taking any changes we always look for its impact, whether how much it is impacting and whether it can be delivered in that particular sprint or not, and if it is not delivered then we move that particular change to the product backlog, and then we again take it back in the sprint backlog once we resume the new iterations. And Scrum project always welcomes change by using short and iterative development, where a new change can be incorporated in the subsequent sprint. So this is the major benefit, we can say that benefit of the Scrum framework that we have here. Then the next part that we have, it is a risk. So in the Scrum aspect, risk is also much more important part of the Scrum framework, where risk is defined as an uncertain events that can affect the objective of a project and may contribute to its success or failure. So if we are assessing the risk earlier in the project, then it is always better to handle that particular risk. And if we are not able to assess it, and if it occurs at the last moment of the project or maybe during the delivery of the project, then it can lead to the failure of the project. So that's why it is important to assess the risk, and assessing and managing the risk is much more needed in a particular Scrum project. So managing risk must be done proactively, and it is an iterative process that should begin at the project initiation phase only and continue throughout the project life cycle. So in every phase of the project life cycle we should assess all the risk and we should manage the risk, because we cannot take the risk and we cannot continue it further without managing that particular risk. Then there has certain project management risk life cycle. So we'll see all those risk life cycle details here. So first one is a risk identification. So whenever we want to identify some of the risk, then this is the initial phase that we should take a note that risk should be properly identified in the project. What all the risk can be there, it may be a hardware related risk, maybe a network related risk, maybe a some governance related risk. So those should be identified. Then we need to analyze all those risks. Then we have to plan some risk mitigation planning. So that is done in the risk mitigation planning section. Then once we plan that risk mitigation, when we should do the mitigation plan implementation, so that we can remove that particular risk, and once we remove that, so basically whenever we see that there has certain risk in a particular project, then it is much more important to manage that risk and remove that risk, and in the same way it is also important to track that risk. So that's why the next part that we have, it is a risk tracking. So this is the risk management life cycle in the project management here. Then we'll see the scrum elements. So basically we have four different scrum elements in the scrum that drives the scrum processes. So first one that we have, it is scrum roles. Then we have a scrum artifacts. Third, we have a scrum events, and fourth, we have a scrum role. So we'll see all these four different elements in details, and I'll start with the scrum role. So as I have already mentioned in the organization part, that we have core roles and non-core roles. So in the core roles, we'll see the product owner first one. So what is the roles and responsibility of the product owner? So basically product owner is nothing but a key decision maker in the project, who knows what needs to be developed and how it should be developed, what are the priorities of the development, and what are the priorities of the deliverable in the project. So product owner also defines what to do and in what order to do, and he also sets the priority, and accordingly he creates the product backlog. Then next we have a scrum master. So basically scrum master is also called as a facilitator, and scrum master basically facilitates the successful implementation of agile scrum processes and principle. And he also ensures that there should not have any roadblocks. If there have any roadblocks, then he need to remove those roadblocks, so that the subsequent sprint can be completed on time, and so that team should be able to deliver the sprint goal. So this is the main task and roles and responsibility of the scrum master. Next we have a scrum team or development team. So basically development team is formed with a member from different areas of functional expertise. There will have a different set of expertise in the development team who uh, implement the project, and there can be a leader and there can be a new member who might be aware about few things, but that member can also learn from his leader. So they have a mix up of the development team, and these members are basically responsible to handle the technical work and achieve the sprint goal, and they are thought to be a self-organized because they learn from themselves, and they always strive towards the single goal. So there might have a different diverse team in a development team, but they always work towards a single common goal to achieve the success of the project. Next, we have a Scrum roles, non-core roles. So here in the non-core roles, we have a business stakeholders. So basically, it includes customer, users, and sponsors who frequently interface with the team or Scrum team and also influence the project throughout the project development. So basically, once any sprint is completed, then sometimes Scrum team member also involve these stakeholders so that they can showcase the completion of that particular part to these team members, and there itself in the sprint review meeting they can accept it or reject if it is done up to the need of that particular stakeholder or not. Then these are nothing but a subset of all the stakeholders in the Scrum project, and it has all the individuals and groups which are affected by the Scrum projects. Next, we have a Scrum guidance body. So generally, it consists of a set of documents or a group of experts who are typically involved with defining objective related to quality, then government regulations, security, and other key parameters. So basically, in the Scrum guidance body, we can always say PMO is there, and some other Scrum team members are there. So basically they set some of the rules related to a documentation, related to the project management, and related to the governance of a particular project, and what all security and key parameter that should be addressed in the project. So these details are maintained and managed by the Scrum guidance body. Next, we have a vendor. So basically, these vendors are nothing but external individuals or organizations that basically provides product or service that are not within the core competencies of the project organization. So let's say if I don't have all the team members that I needed to complete a set of a project or a particular project, then in that case I might connect with some third party organizations from where I can seek some help, and I can seek some developers or I can seek some designers from there. So these are called as the vendors. Then we'll see Scrum artifact. So basically, Scrum artifacts are nothing but a set of information that a Scrum team and stakeholder use to detail the product being developed and what actions needs to be produced and the what actions are needed to be performed during the project. So we'll see all those different artifacts here. So basically, the main artifacts that we can say in the Scrum are product backlog, then we have a sprint backlog, third one we have a product increment. So we'll see all these main Scrum artifacts in detail, but there also have some alternate or secondary Scrum artifacts that we can say in the Scrum, and these are nothing but the sprint goal, then we have a definition of done, then the product vision and the burn down chart. So we'll also see some of these secondary Scrum artifact as well in our upcoming videos, and we'll also see how it is managed and how it is implemented in the project management tool. So here we can see in this Scrum artifact chart here that we have it is product backlog, then we have a sprint backlog, and after that we have a increment. So here we'll see the details about the product backlog. So in the product backlog is nothing but a prioritized list of the work for the development team that is derived from the product objective and the requirement. So basically, the responsibility of a product manager is to manage a product backlog. He needs to create all the project backlog as per the objective or the deliverables that are there in the project, and the most important items are always shown at the top of the product backlog so that it will be easier for the team to understand the priority and priority of the deliverables in the product backlog. Then next we have a sprint backlog. So basically, sprint backlog is derived from the product backlog itself, and during the sprint backlog or sprint planning meeting, this particular sprint backlog is created, and this is always created during each iterations, and all the items that are there in the top of this product backlog, it is pulled from there and it is updated in the sprint backlog. And it also clears the sprint backlog, which prevents a scope creep, because if we don't have a set of deliverables that are defined in the product backlog, and if it is not understood by all the team members, then it is uh, we cannot say that, we cannot guarantee that it can be delivered in a particular sprint. So that's why all these product backlog are always clarified by the product owner, and all those deliverables are defined by the product owner, so that they should not have any issue while working on any sprint backlog items. Next, we have a product increment. So product increment is nothing but whenever you complete a particular sprint, so that completed project plus the thing that you're going to complete in the next project, it is mentioned in the product increment part. And all these particular details are properly tested, and once it is tested, it is properly defined and delivered at the end of the product delivery, or we can say at the end of a product increment. Then next we'll see the Scrum event or ceremonies. So basically, Scrum event is sometimes called as a Scrum ceremonies or Scrum meetings. So we have a different Scrum meetings in the Scrum framework that are sprint planning meeting, then we have a daily Scrum meeting, we have a sprint review meeting, sprint retrospective meeting, and the sprint itself is also one of a Scrum event or Scrum ceremonies. So we'll see what are the different timeline and what are the purpose of all these different Scrum meetings here. So here we can see all the Scrum events. Then I'll start with sprint planning. So basically, sprint planning meeting takes place at the beginning of a sprint. So once product backlog is defined and we are ready to start a sprint, then before starting a sprint, we should conduct a sprint planning meeting with product owner, Scrum Master, and development team. So here the purpose of this meeting is to define the objective and task that should be completed in a particular sprint. So here all the high priority items are taken first. Then next we have a daily Scrum meeting. So once sprint is started, then this daily Scrum meeting is conducted. Usually it is conducted at the beginning of the day, so that a team should understand what they are going to deliver today. And there I have a set of questions that are asked in the daily scrum meeting. So we'll see all those questions here, but maximum time that we can say for a daily scrum meeting, it is up to 15 minutes only. Then we have a sprint review meeting. So once sprint is completed, then it is important to review all the points that are completed in the particular sprint and give a demo to the product owner and to the scrum master. So this is the responsibility of a development team to give the demo about the finished product of that particular sprint, so that the product owner can also decide like what items can be taken up in the next sprint, and if team has missed to deliver some of the items in the particular sprint, then that can be taken up in the next sprint as well. Then we have a sprint retrospective meeting. So basically this meeting uh, basically it happens at the end of a sprint. So during this sprint retrospective meetings, team connects together, and there have set of questions like what went well during the sprint and what could be improved for their next sprint. So this is necessary to understand like how team is working and where they are falling behind. So if it is understood initially at the sprints, then it is always better to improve the team in the next iterations or next subsequent sprint. Then the sprint. So sprint itself is also a scrum event. So in this it contains all the work and all the other event that happens during the time box period of development. So basically all these sprint meetings like sprint planning, daily scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective, so they have a decided timeline, and those should be conducted in that particular timeline only, so that time is not wasted while working on the particular project. So here we will see what questions are asked during the scrum event. So in the daily stand up meeting we have three set of questions like what did you do yesterday, is there have any impediments, or what are the plans for today. So these questions are necessary to understand like how team is going, and what we can expect from the team to deliver in a particular sprint. So next we have a sprint retrospective. So in the sprint retrospective, it is always better to understand about the team like what went well during the sprint. So there can be a set of pointers which was pretty good with the team and they were able to deliver it in the timeline. And next that we have here, it is what didn't go well during the sprint. And third question that we have, what have I learned in the sprint. So these three questions are asked during the sprint retrospective. And next we'll see the scrum rules. So it is always better to manage your roles in the scrum, because if you want to manage a team or create an organized structure for a particular project, then it is always necessary to define some scrum rules to optimize the development process and to minimize the time wasted. And basically here scrum master plays an important role to ensure that all the scrum team members follows the rules, and they are following all the scrum rules which are defined, so that time is not wasted while working on a project. So the first rule that we have, it is a time bound sprint. So as every sprint should be of 1 to 4 weeks in duration, it should not exceed more. Otherwise, team will not understand the set of deliverables, or they might get confused while delivering the project. And then second that we have, in the time bound sprint, it is there should not have any breaks between the sprint. So if any sprint is defined for 2 weeks, then it should be completed in 2 weeks only. If it is defined for 1 week, it should get completed in a 1 week timeline only. And a team should not get any additional breaks while working on a sprint. And every sprint should be of same length. Let's say if I'm starting sprint 1 for 2 weeks, then all the subsequent sprint should be of 2 weeks only. It should not exceed 2 weeks. Then we have a planned sprint. So intention of every sprint should be a shippable product, means it should give certain output so that it can be added as a product increment. So whenever we are planning a sprint, then it should be planned in such a way that every sprint should give some output. That means it should deliver something for from that particular project deliverables, so that it can be added in the product increment. Then before start of every sprint planning meeting should be conducted to plan all the tasks that can be completed in the sprint duration. And basically sprint planning meeting should be time boxed to 1 to 2 hours per week of a sprint length. So sprint planning meeting depends on the sprint length of a particular sprint. So let's say if I am planning a sprint for 1 week or 2 weeks, then for per week it should be of 1 to 2 hours, so that team should understand what are the deliverables in that particular sprint. Then next we have a daily stand up meeting. So this is basically conducted every day to understand what team is going to deliver and what they are doing, and if they have any impediment or any roadblocks. And this is time boxed for 15 minutes. And fourth one that we have here, it is sprint review and retrospective meeting. So basically this is done at the end of a sprint to understand uh, like what is delivered, and to see the output how it is delivered, and also to understand like what is going well within the team and during the sprint. And basically it is also time boxed to 1 to 2 hours per week of a sprint length. Next, we'll see the Scrum values. So basically, we have five different Scrum values that are courage, focus, commitment, respect, and openness. So first, we'll see about the courage. So Scrum team member must have the courage to do the right thing and work on the difficult problems. So basically, team should always have a courage to understand the new thing, and if they are facing certain problem, they should have a courage to ask those detail with their team leaders or with any other team members who knows it better. Then focus. So basically focus is related to the success of a project. So if any endeavor big or it is a small to succeed, then applying strong focus is always important for a particular project. So without a focus you cannot complete any set of deliverables or any objective that you are taking in your hand to deliver. Then we have a commitment. So this involves each member of the team personally committing to achieving the goals of the scrum team. So in a scrum team there have a different team members of different user groups, or maybe have different expertise they have. So according to their expertise they have been divided. The team divides all their work among all these team members, so they should always commit to complete those allotted tasks that are there in the scrum. Then we have a respect. Every member should respect each team member, and that's why if we have a respect in a team, then it is always easy to manage that particular team. If we don't have any respect, or if any team member keeps fighting with other team member, then we cannot guarantee the success of the particular scrum project. Then openness. So basically in the openness it is always crucial for each team member to open about any issues that they encounter, and so that it can be addressed at the right time. And if they are not highlighting any particular issues, then it might create a issue later in the stage, or maybe in the final delivery of the project. So that's why every team member should have openness. So these are the scrum values. And next we'll see about the scrum processes, about the phase wise. So initially we have an initiate phase. So in the initiate phase we have a different processes, like we should create a project vision. Then we should understand and identify the scrum master and business stakeholders in the team. Then we have to form a scrum team, and after that we should develop epics, and then we should create a prioritized product backlog. So this is the responsibility of a product owner to create the product backlog. Then product owner can also create a release planning. Then next we have next phase, that is plan and estimate. So during this particular phase we can say that we should create a user stories, estimate user stories, we can commit user stories, then we should identify task, we should estimate task, and we should update sprint backlog. Next that we have here, it is implement phase. So in the implement phase, team create the deliverables, they conduct daily stand up meetings. Then they refine the product, prioritize product backlog. So sometimes if any item is not delivered in the sprint backlog, then that can be moved to the product backlog, and according to the priority it can be delivered in the next subsequent sprint. Next phase that we have in the uh, product development life cycle, it is review and retrospective. So basically in this one we should demonstrate and validate the sprint, and we should retrospect the sprint. And the last phase that we have here, it is a release. So once all the deliverables are done and it is properly tested and all demo is done and it is working properly, then it is shipped, uh, and after that retrospect is released. So this is all the processes that we have in the Scrum. So these were some of the few more important Scrum terminologies that I have covered today. And if you have any questions, or if you want to know about any other Scrum terminologies that you can encountered with, then you can always comment here. And if you think that this information is very much more useful for you, or you can implement this in your organization, or it will be helpful for you to grow in your career, then you can always like this particular video. And if you want to see some other useful video related to project management, you can comment here, and certainly I can see a comment, and I can try to create a particular video and informative video on those particular topic. So thank you so much.